Okay, I think we are all set up here, ready to go. Welcome back to Money Mondays here at Unmarked Street and the Business of Apparel. Today, I wanted to start a little bit of a series that I want to do for you. And first of all, know that like Cyber Monday, I think is coming up in a couple of weeks. So we will be skipping Money Mondays in 2 weeks to push our Cyber Monday sales, which are going to be freaking bonkers. So keep an eye out for that for sure. So this three-part little series is going to actually last over the next 4 weeks of Money Mondays. I really want to get you some of this information on target costing. So a week or two ago on LinkedIn and in our blog, we posted about designing to a cost and how you can reverse engineer taking like a target price that you want to sell your item for and how to then work that in with your design team so that they're designing to that cost up front in hopes that you'll be able to get better costing in at the first prototyping round. And what that does is it eliminates the need to drop everything all the time. So as designers and developers and even as product managers, we put so much effort into designing these amazing styles that we want for our brand. And then we get the first prototype back or the second prototype back, and we've heard from our factories what it's going to cost. And we go, oh, shoot, we can't afford that. So we have to drop it. And it just creates a lot of anxiety. It creates a lot of turnover because people get really sick of that. Morale like totally like bombs. People are really distressed at work all of the time because the work that they're doing sometimes up to 90% of the time for some brands is getting killed only a few rounds into the process. And so what I want to do over these next few weeks throughout this series is kind of show you how you can do all of this work up front by setting target costs and then working toward that instead of feeling like at the end of a season or in the middle of a season, you're actually crushing everybody's work and it makes everyone feel like their productivity is really low. It makes everyone feel like the work that they're doing isn't valued. And so we want to get rid of that, right? Because at the end of the day, when you're talking about turnover, so let's say we have a designer who is designing these beautiful styles for us every single season. And by the middle of every season, we've gotten third prototypes in, we've tried to work on costing, but we didn't do it up front. We waited until we started to see samples. And now like half of their line, let's just say half, is being eliminated because of costing challenges. That person over time is going to get worn down faster and faster. And that designer is probably going to decide to leave at some point because it's frustrating. They get frustrated. They feel like they're in a not great job. They feel like they're not working with a team who's supporting them or supporting their designs. And so they decide to go. And turnover costs your company so much money. You cannot afford turnover at the rate that we're seeing. I was reading an article not too long ago. I've talked about this a little bit where it costs you for every hourly employee. So maybe a part-time person that you don't have like a full-time salary benefited employee. An hourly employee is going to cost you at least $1,500 to replace them every time that they leave. And for that salaried employee, it can cost you up to two times their salary to replace them because you have to train a new person, you have to hire a new person. All of that productivity that you had with that salaried employee goes away until you figure out how to replace them. There is just so much that goes into turnover. You want to prevent it as much as possible. So today I want to talk about step one of setting a target price. And really what this first step comes down to, it's on your product manager to really decide what they think they can sell an item for. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk a little bit about competitor research and how you go out there and figure out how much you want to sell an item for. And then next week, we're going to talk about how we take that retail price that we've decided on, how to create a target cost for our factory that our designers can then move toward. And then in the third part of this series, what I want to talk about is even further how to set up target fabric costs, target trim costs, target factory profitability for your brand so that it makes sense, so that not only are you sending your designer a target cost that they need to work toward, but you're also then setting to them a target fabric price that they're looking for in their researching and target trim prices that they can then apply to every style. So again, today, let's just talk a little bit about competitor research. So this is what a lot of product managers in the fashion industry will do. Usually at the beginning of a season, especially if you're at a big brand, we like to set aside a few weeks to let our designers and our product managers go do research. We like to let them get inspired. We like to let them see what's out in the market. We talk a lot about product pyramids and how everything kind of trickles down from the top. So if you're talking about couture and runway, everything kind of trickles down from there. Then we get into ready wear. We get into some of your evergreen styles. We get into mass market in that area. And so if you understand how your brand falls within that pyramid, it becomes really important to understand who you're kind of looking at to gauge where you might want to be in a year or 2 years from now. And I say a year or 2 years because it's going to depend on how long your calendar is. So if you're working on a 1 year development calendar, let's say you're not doing salesman samples, you're not working with a salesman team who needs to go sell into wholesale, what you want to be able to do is put yourself on about a year, 16 months of a development calendar. And then you can start to read the pyramid to understand, okay, if I'm an outdoor brand, I'm probably looking at athleisure, like higher end athleisure brands that are coming in at currently. So I want to go shop at those stores currently, see what they're doing. And at about the time when I'm going to launch that piece for like my cycling brand or my running brand, that trend is going to be relevant for my key market. And so as long as you understand how all of that works, and you're able to kind of read those trends. Now, if you're not like very familiar with that, we have a lot of that information in the Business of Apparel online course. We also have some diagrams that we'd be happy to maybe share with you. Let us know if that would be helpful. So what you want to do is start shopping at the brands that are going to be indicating to you where your brand needs to be after your development cycle is over. And then what you're going to be doing is looking for like brands. So let's say you need to develop a new yoga tight. You might be needing to go to some higher end yoga stores and understanding what it is that they're selling. So what is trending right now in the way of yoga tights? Are we seeing really heavy, thick fabrics? Are we seeing really lightweight fabrics? Are we seeing tons of pockets everywhere? Are we seeing different features? What kind of branding are we looking at? What are the lengths of the tights? Are we actually seeing ankle length? Are people wearing, knickers or capri length tights even more often now? And so there are a lot of different nuances that you want to kind of go out, research, keep an eye out for, and then you want to bring that back to your brand. That's how you're going to write your product brief. So when you're writing your product brief, you're going to put all of that information in there. Anything that's key, this season we need to make sure that we have an ankle length yoga tight because that's going to be really important for our customer once this product hits. So that's how you're going to write your product brief. A big part of that product brief, though, is the retail price that you plan to sell your item for. And while you're out doing your research of your competitors or of the people that you're watching so that you can be right on trend when the time hits, you want to be looking at what they're selling their items for. And then you need to be applying that to your brand. So let's say you're going into Lululemon and they're selling a yoga tight for $100, but you know that your brand is actually set to be more high end, more expensive. All of your products tend to be at a top tier price point compared to Lululemon. You might then decide, based on our traditional way of pricing things compared to these kinds of brands, we're actually going to set our retail price at $150. On the flip side of that, you might be saying, Lululemon, like nobody in my market can afford that. My customers walk away from Lululemon all day long because it's too expensive. Well, that might be a case where then you, for your brand, need to say, okay, my yoga tight that's going to rival that 16 months from now needs to cost only $75 or only $50. Obviously, the lower that you go, the more challenging it's going to be to your design team and development team to hit your costs. But these are the important numbers for them to know. So let's say you decide to set a $50 retail price point. That is going to be crucial for your design and development team to know up front so that they're not designing a $150 yoga tight. You see how this starts to make a lot of sense? You want to have these numbers up front so that your design team can do really good work for you and make sure that that first prototype is coming back so that when you throw it in your line planning spreadsheet against that $50 retail price point that you want to be able to sell it for, you're reading a really healthy margin. And again, healthy margins here. If you're selling into wholesale, you want to be getting a 50% margin back to your brand. And if you're selling direct to consumer, we want to see you at about 65%. or higher. And what that does is it leaves you room so that if you ever decide to sell wholesale, you've got room in that budget, you've got room in that margin to be able to absorb those kinds of prices, those kinds of discounts that you're going to have to give to your wholesaler. I know I talked really fast today. I know this was a lot, but the key here is to go out, give yourself some time to do seasonal research at the beginning of every single season. You want to be going to as many stores that you possibly can, writing down all of the different features that you're finding that are going to be important for you to put into the products. That goes into your product brief. And then you also want to be paying attention to what everyone else is selling their product for. What is that retail price? And then you want to compare it to how your brand stacks up against them, whether you want to be a lower price point, a higher price point, or priced right alongside them. In that scenario I was saying earlier, if you actually want to be right alongside Lululemon, you want to price yours also at that same $100 so that you can make sure that your customers are seeing apples to apples. So next week, we're going to talk a little bit about how this will boil down into a target cost for your factory. But the first thing that you need to understand is that your target retail price is extremely important. If you know for sure you cannot go over $120, if you cannot go over $100 in that retail price, or your customer will never buy it, that is really key, crucial information that your entire team needs to know. And communication is key here. The more that we can all be talking to each other and sharing the information that we have, the better we are all going to perform as a team, the better our product is going to be, and the less turnover you are going to see as a team, because people are all going to be working toward a similar goal, and people aren't going to be seeing their projects killed halfway through a season. So make sure to join me next week. We'll be talking all about how to turn that retail price into a target cost. And I can't wait to see you then. Have a great rest of your week.